Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. Today we are continuing an interview that we started last week. This interview is with Debbie Mirza. She's a best-selling author in the field of covert narcissism. We're going to just dive right in. If you missed last week, go back and listen. It is so worth the time. This is the continuation of that interview. So the next question is, I really want to know how to get over the narcissist. How does one take the information that makes sense to get over the abuse, like no contact, which sounds logical, but it isn't easy when trauma bonded? How do you stop thinking about them and trying to make sense out of this kind of at the same time?
I think a couple things there. It would be good and helpful for everyone, if you haven't done this already, to do a search on the term trauma bonded, because there's something about reading more and more information about what that even means, because that is an attachment thing that happens when you're with an abuser. Mm-hmm. And we can end up, we're being traumatized by them, and we can end up making excuses or staying with them because we feel bad, or they went through a bad childhood, or we see glimpses of hope. So we keep putting ourselves in the line of fire because of this idea of trauma bonding. And so the reason I say, I can explain it to you, but for you to sit down and really read articles just on this one thing is going to help go from an emotional space to a more intellectual, logical space, which really helps with the whole cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. And so for you to read it, your eyes are going to see, this is actually what I'm doing, and that actually is going to help you be able to separate from them when you see what's actually the dynamic that's happening, the dynamic that you've gotten used to. And many of us, get this from childhood because we're just used to playing this role, with a parent who caused us a lot of trauma.
We're used to pouring all that energy, like the description you just gave in the Gray Rock. We're pouring all of that energy into them, and we just keep doing it, which keeps us trapped in that trauma bond.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I would say that is something that would be helpful to do. The other thing that helps with getting over them, and this is not an overnight thing. This will take time. But it's helpful to even just write down. I remember doing this at some point. I may have put this in Worthy of Love. I hope I did. Yeah, and Worthy of Love is all about, I talk about my own healing process. Right. And give specific exercise and things for people to do in order to heal. So, and those that feel like you have the information, now you're really focused on healing, that would be the perfect book for you right now. But one thing that I did was I needed to see clearly, this person is addressing, and it's so emotional. And so I ended up just writing down, let me just write down all of the things he said to me, all of the behaviors that I've noticed, just separating myself from emotion. It helped me just to look at this list and go, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people to become a news reporter, like a journalist. You just write.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's eye-opening.
Yeah. It's very eye-opening. Yeah, exactly. Because we can end up swirling about, one conversation. And so it's helpful just to write down, okay, let me just look at the straight up behaviors and words that were spoken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's absolutely great advice. So after escaping, how does the victim trust again? How do you learn to trust yourself or another person after coming out of a narcissistic marriage?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And that's what we all deal with and feel. So I feel like these relationships are a wake up call for more than this relationship that we experienced. And what I mean by that, and maybe I'll like tell a bit of a story. This story I tell in the beginning of Safest Place Possible, if this sounds familiar to people. I After this I had a very long relationship, and after it ended, um, I was so lost and very deeply depressed. And I asked myself, what is it you need right now? Is there anything at all that sounds good to you? Because during that time in my life, like nothing sounded good to me, nothing sounded exciting. I didn't have anything that was motivating me to, except like having to take care of kids. Um, and the only thing I could think of, I just thought, you know what sounds so nice? I just want to run away. I just want to run away from my life. I want to run away so far. I want to go somewhere where no one knows me. The scenery is completely different. The culture is completely different. I just want to run.
Wanted to escape.
Run. Yeah. I'm a big fan of, in certain cases, running away.
Yes.
So I didn't know how to do that. I had kids to take care of. I had responsibilities. How could I, financially afford it? Because that's another way they abuse is financial abuse. So that was an issue in my life. And I had mentioned it to my dad at one point, just in passing. It's like, God, that would be amazing. And then just went on with my life. And then a month later, he wrote me and said, I have a friend in Bali who owns a villa, and they said you can stay there for free. I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. And he said, this is something that happened to, I've talked to other people, and I don't know how this was for you, Renee, but during the darkest times, it just seemed like there would be people that popped up at the right time for me, or a book that came to me at the perfect time, or an article or a video. I felt held through this, even though I had times of feeling so alone,
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I went through the same thing. And the more I connected with that, the more I opened my heart to it, the more opportunities came.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. And so this was one of those times. And he said, I will take care of your kids for you. Long story short, I ran away. And it was the best thing I did for myself. And I ended up going to, remember the book, Eat, Pray, Love?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of the book was when she was in Bali, she worked with this medicine man, Balinese medicine man. And so I thought, if I'm here, I need to meet Ketut Lear. I'd never done anything like that. And I sat with him. At that time, he was too old to do sessions with people or readings or whatever. And so this other guy said he would do it, but I sat next to Ketut and held his hand, and he was just so sweet.
Wow.
And I know people will relate to this, like when you've been treated so awful by a covert narcissist, just the kindness of a stranger, the kindness of a cashier at the grocery store, it just brings you to tears. And so just to feel this man, like, I think especially because it was men helping me, because I had most of my wounding in life have been from men, but there have been women too. And this definitely isn't a gender thing. It's both, I think, almost equal. So I want to make that clear. But just from my own personal experience, to have a man look at me with such loving eyes and just feel the authenticity of that caring. And the Balinese man, he looked at my palms and then he looked at me really concerned and just talked. Well, he said, in this life, you will have 2 marriages.
Okay.
And he said, first one, very confusing. And his like brows like furrowed. He looked really concerned, and he's like, not good for your heart, not good for your heart. And I just started just sobbing. And he kept saying, you must take care of your heart. You must take care of your heart. When you take care of your heart, or when you're happy, more happy come to you. That's what he said.
Yeah.
I know. And just that alone broke something open for me that night. I went back to my villa. I just curled up on the floor in the corner of that room and just sobbed. And I spoke to myself. I started like talking to my heart because I just kept hearing, you must take care of your heart. You must take care of your heart. And I spoke to my heart, and as if she was like a young girl. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply sorry, because I know, like, for some reason, I let this happen. Like, I'm not blaming myself at all, just only compassion. I didn't see it. Like, we don't see it. And we need to have a tremendous amount of grace for ourselves with that. Yes, there's a reason we didn't see it, and it's not our fault. And I spoke to my heart and I said, I promise you, things are going to be different from this moment on. I am going to treat you with respect and kindness. I'm going to listen to you. I apologize for an entire life of talking you out of things, not honoring you, not listening to you, not, guarding you, protecting you. And that's going to change. And when I got back, I completely changed how I spoke to myself. And that was the birth of the safest place possible. And even to the point, at the time I was going to this gym and working out, and I went to the gym and I was lifting weights, and my whole body just felt like, I don't want to be here. So I just put the weights down. I left the class. I walked outside. and I, because my heart just became like, you are number one right now. And I just like talked to myself. I was like, what do you need? Do you not want to be here? I will leave in a second if you don't want to be here. I just became like fiercely protective of my heart. And so I went back, I put my weights away. I said goodbye. I never returned.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just it was this beginning of every millisecond. How are you? What do you need? This just creating this new relationship. And I share this story because I think sometimes stories are just so helpful for us to like, see a point I'm trying to make and paint a picture of this is a chance for us to completely change how we treat ourselves and we behave in the world, and really relearn how to honor that heart of ours that has been wounded and that we probably haven't honored, until now. So I don't even remember now what the question was, but for some reason.
Well, the question is, how do you learn to trust again? Yeah.
Okay. So starting with that, getting connected, asking yourself, how are you? What do you need? And then really starting to, going along with that, learn to notice your body. Because that's one thing with covert narcissism. We can have the narcissist in front of us looking polished, sounding confident. Everyone around us respects them, thinks they're amazing, thinks we're so lucky to have them. And for some reason, when they're speaking to us, our stomach feels tight. For some reason, we can't think clear anymore. We feel clouded in our head. We notice our shoulders drooping, and so these are the things, like when we talk about red flags, sometimes it's not what they're saying or doing, it's what our body is feeling. And so it's so important, as far as trusting other people, to first learn to trust yourself, and first learn to start noticing, my stomach's tight and it's tight for a reason. And I don't even need to know why. So maybe I need to leave this room right now. Maybe I need to leave this conversation and just go be with that and figure out what's going on.
Right.
And so before we trust other people, it really you'll feel more confident the more you learn to trust yourself, because then it's not about the other person. It's about, I trust myself to know if this person is good for me or not. And also, the more you do this, and the more you treat yourself with love and care, you're going to get so used to that feeling that when you're with someone and they behave in a certain way that isn't loving, you're going to be able to recognize that a lot sooner.
Right.
So I would say that's like the long-term path to the whole issue of trusting people.
Yeah, I mean, it's learning to listen to you again, learning to listen to your body, listen to your heart, listen to your soul, listen to your energy. It's all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Excellent answer to that. Next question is, this concludes our time today, but we still have more to offer in this interview. I hope that you are truly enjoying this time with Debbie Mirza and the incredible knowledge that she brings to the topic of covert narcissism. Please join us next week for the last part of this interview. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism Podcast with your host, Renee Swanson. Be sure to check out our website at www.covertnarcissism.com. There you will find many resources just for you to help you on this journey. You can also reach out to me by email at Renee, RENEE, at cnglifecoaching.com. Those letters are CNG, as in Covert Narcissism Group. I do look forward to hearing from you. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing.